Hello and welcome to SFI Not So Live. I'm here with Tony, as always. Hello. And we'll introduce our special guest in just a moment. We are the UK's #1 mortgage podcast, still at the top of the tree there. So welcome here. If you are listening to us and you want to watch us, you can head over to Spotify where you can see our new video podcast, so do head over there. But before we crack into our podcast topics for today, I just want to introduce our special guest for this month, and that's Martin Reynolds. Martin, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to give the audience a little bit of an introduction of where you work to start with, and we'll go on to your other ventures after that? So just tell us a bit about Simply Biz.
Yep. So I'm CEO of Simply Biz Mortgages, so part of the Fintel Group. So we're an AIM-listed business. The parts that I look after is the Mortgage Club, which is there to work with all the directly authorised firms that are within our compliance proposition, and we have a full suite of mortgage products, general insurance, protection, ancillary, and the key bit for us is all about education and training and making sure that we can help advisors have the tools at the right time to help consumers make better financial decisions.
Wonderful. And also, you're chair of FIBA, so tell us a little bit about FIBA and what you do within your organisation and how you help the predominant audience of this podcast, which is mortgage brokers.
Yeah, so FIBA is a trade body within the specialist property finance market, and our aim is to work with people within the specialist buy-to-let, bridging, development finance and commercial term arena. So our view is to help, again, educate and train the advisors in there, work with the lenders within that to make sure that more people get access to that finance.
Perfect. And that plugs quite nicely one of the topics we're going to talk about later,
Absolutely.
Which is development finance. But just for sake of a few caveats from us, the opinions that we talk about on this podcast are that our own and not that of our employers. And the information is right at the time of recording, which is currently the 26th of April 2024. Boring bit over. Let's chat. So we're going to focus today's episode on three areas, self-build, custom build, and development finance. Let's start off with self and custom build. Tony, we talk about self and custom build quite a lot. I think we've dipped into it in the podcast. We've never actually focused very hard on what it means, what it is, a definition, a kind of an introduction to it to brokers that haven't dared venture. Because I think it's fair to say that brokers probably think, or less experienced brokers probably think it's more difficult for them.
Absolutely. Look, we've done a lot of research, and we did some research with brokers recently and asking about complex lending and the definition of complex lending. Bear with me with this. It is going in the right way, trust me. And we talked about all the classic complex lending components: self-employed, contractor, multiple incomes. But the one thing wholeheartedly not one broker mentioned was self-build.
Isn't it?
So and that's because it is a small part of the mortgage market, but it is growing. It's now on average between 12 and 15,000 units a year as self-build or custom build, and that makes it the UK's 4th largest house builder, behind Barratt, Persimmon and Taylor Wimpey. It's the 4th largest. So it's a big part of the market that is very, very sorely misunderstood or little understood.
But comparatively, that sounds quite big in the UK, but it's quite small compared to other countries, isn't it?
Absolutely. We are the smallest overall volume of self-build in the known developed world. We're currently roughly about 7% of our house building is self-build, whereas the average is around 40%.
Wow!
So we are significantly
really
behind the times in terms of others. But self-build gets its confusion or its complexity from programs like Grand Designs, which is an amazing program. But actually, if you videoed 99% of self-builds, it would be really dull because they just work. They only actually air the ones where the house is made out of a different construction, or it goes off budget, or something.
That's
because
in the
that makes great
application, isn't
telly.
it? I think when you look at the applications for Grand Designs, they say, are you building something complex, something that you wouldn't expect?
No one wants to watch an hour of something going well, do they? Schadenfreude is our want as a species. We love to see the misery of others and then bask in that. So I think that's a key part of the misconception of this market, and it shouldn't be that. And self-build is made up of a number of components, which is self-build, custom build, renovation and refurbishment. So it isn't just about a hole in the ground building a new house. It's so much. And that's why we've kind of classified it in a different way, because it's a lot of things to say in one go, is to self-commission homes. So that's the easiest approach to this, which is somebody making the decision to build their own house or have support from somebody to build it for them. And just very, conscious that we've got a guest and I need to let him speak. But if you want the definition between self and custom build, self build is where the whole project is largely in control and of the person building it. They might not build it themselves. They might have a main contractor doing all the work, but they're involved in everything. Okay, that's the obvious one. Custom build is where the buyer or builder has a significant impact and input into the layout and finishes of the property, but doesn't necessarily have all the build. They're relying on an SME builder to produce a plot of land or to create a building that they can then use. That's probably really not helped that definition there too much, but that's the main difference.
Okay. So I might have to pick that apart a little bit in a minute.
Do you want me to redo it?
No, we'll talk about it. We'll answer some more questions like in a minute, because I think the audience will be a bit like me there. I think we just jumped over a lot of things. Let's talk about it in a sec. Just come to your mind. You work a lot with brokers. Do you think it is an area that brokers are needing more education on? Are they scared of it? Is it something that they just don't want to dip their toes in? Is self and custom build something that perhaps they might think that's too complex? Maybe I need to keep it more simple.
I think there's a number of things. I think there is its perception as complex. Ultimately, it's still a mortgage on a property, and we can touch that when we touch on development finance and all the other areas. I think there's another areas. One, the stats that Tony said, still in all my data, is it's about 7%. We might get to 20,000 in a purchase market of 125, 130,000. So it's still quite niche. So brokers, by definition, aren't going to come across it that often unless they proactively go looking for it or have tied up with a small SME builder who's in that market. So you got there. And I think also the distribution of it into lenders will put some off. So there's about 25 lenders that will do self-build, of which 50% of them have got a limited distribution. Right. So therefore, if you're a broker who might come across one, you've got a number of factors there that are saying to it, it's a bit hard, isn't it? I'll just send it somewhere, or I'll say no, because actually by the time I've worked out how to do it, through whom and in what way, I've probably done 4 normal mortgages. So from that point of view, it's how do we simplify it? How do we simplify the process? How are we more transparent with the process so there is something that gets picked up? And I think, yes, it's niche, but a few years ago, limited company buy-to-let was niche and everybody didn't want to do it. Now it's mainstream.
Yes.
So, but that was due to lots of training, lots of education, and a greater accessibility for a broker to get involved in it.
In my eyes, I think we are, as you just alluded to with the limited company buy-to-let, we're at a stage where the education should be happening now, because I see it as a generational change, because we talk a lot about people not wanting to buy the houses that are being built. These houses are being built by the big builders. They don't want them. They don't want them. They're boring. They're not energy efficient, whatever. But we've talked about this a lot, and I like this as a subject. Green homes, greener homes, more efficient homes, homes that don't cost as much to run. Surely self and custom build lends beautifully into that. So when you've got the Gen Zs coming through and buying their first home, and the Gen Xs or whoever's coming next, buying their first homes, and they're conscious about what they're doing to the environment, or they're conscious about what their bills might be, surely this lends itself to it. So there's a generation coming through that go want these self.
Absolutely. Look, NAXPA ran a research into the EPC changes with building your own home, and there's the basic analysis showed a between 7 and 43% improvement in energy efficiency of a self-built home, because it's not being built by somebody that's not going to live in it and doesn't really care. It's built by the person that's going to live in it, so you've got that much better build quality. And 93% of all people surveyed who were looking at self-build said the main reason for doing it was energy efficiency.
I believe that. What about longevity, though? Do they intend to stay in the houses longer because they've got more of an attachment to it? Or
yes, again, basically, the benefits of self-build or custom build is you are building that probably house 3 or 4 times down the line that you would buy normally.
Yes,
because whilst it is potentially cheaper to build your own home, It's a more you've got to have finance in place to do it, etc., etc. But that's the easy bit. But actually, the equity value you get from it, you are looking at that second, third, perhaps even fourth house along. So people do stay longer, or if they don't, they're creating wealth or equity to move to that right property as a result.
Interesting.
I think that's the challenge with the Gen Z, though, is are you going to take that on as your first property? As a first-time buyer.
So we need to educate them almost.
Yeah, how do you get somebody who's a first-time buyer, you go, I'll do that, because it's quite daunting buying your first property, full stop. To then say, there's a hole, how would you like it to be built?
Exactly.
Is quite a hard challenge.
We always talk about this Grand Designs versus Homes of the Hammer, but Homes of the Hammer, I think, built a whole load of landlords. I think people looked at that and said, I could do that. I could buy another property and I could do it up and I could, rent it out or whatever. Maybe we have got these TV programs, maybe they are pushing people in that way. I think if I imagine back to my friends when they were younger, if they had the opportunity to build their own home and they knew how to do it, I think it'd be really interesting to see how we would react. It would.
I think to Martin's point, he's right. It's scary, but that's where custom build comes into its own, because you've got somebody building it for you. You just have significant input into, I want that room looking like this. I want this here.
Is it that specific to
absolutely.
room? Oh,
absolutely.
Okay.
You know, you can have shell design, which is basically you look at a street of 5 or 6 houses. They all look the same outside, but inside they'll be completely different because the walls are internally.
So the walls are placed in different places.
Oh, wherever you want it. That's shell design, or you can have someone actually building the house differently, or you can have, one of the providers of different houses saying you've got 5 or 6 different options. Which one do you like? We got to catch up with Germany. They've got one website that has 2,400 different house variations.
Is this the company with the big thick catalogue that I've seen? I saw a video of someone flicking through this catalogue of houses.
2,500 choices of house just for you.
It's like an Argos catalogue of houses.
Absolutely.
I
think, but it's until we get that education up and we get that development and the government actually provide support and education around this and really embrace that custom and self-build is not instead of, but is an integral part of solving our house building dilemma, we're going to have this challenge. But it is improving all the time.
But do we not, therefore, though, need to look at that education and where it goes? Because you mentioned homeowners and the hand of grand design. People don't watch TV now.
No.
It's YouTube. You need to have those on YouTube.
Absolutely.
In short, sharp.
Yep.
Exactly.
Things so people watch it. So that's the area that people need to look at how we communicate that out.
And I think we do have without being too political, but we do have a problem with the housing market and the conglomerate of big players that are in the market that are dominating. And I do think it's going to take a government kick up the bum. It's going to take the government to say, okay, we need a better housing policy that includes this within, and then they can start building on that. They're getting better. They're getting better at educating through.
It's there. It's just I think we're probably coming on to it later, but it just needs reform and it needs some flames held to the feet of local planning authorities to actually get on and do something.
Well, let's do this because I think we could probably all have a bit of a pop of this and planning reform because it is an issue, isn't it? Let's just talk about it now. You've got and we'll come on to it with development finance as well. The issues and there's brownfield land available to them apparently, but the local councils are underfunded. The planning departments are not working at full steam. How are we ever going to kick off more sort of self-build and custom build and development finance projects if they don't move quicker?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've got Michael Gove at Duluck, talking about the reform that they're looking at and actually the money that's been pumped into local planning authorities to help drive and improve. But you've got the right to build legislation, which has been around for a number of years, which places a statutory duty on every local authority to meet self-build demand in its constituency.
Do they meet that?
No, absolutely. That's proven that they systematically don't. But there's been until now, there's no accountability on doing it.
Right.
So they have to statutory under legislation provide. You have to join the register, the right to build register, which is if you want to build your own home, you apply to the register to say, I need a piece of land. And then the local authority has to assess demand based on that and create sites, create opportunity to do that. But the challenge is if you don't get on the register, they don't need to create the demand. So
nothing happens.
So a number of councils are creating barriers to entry to the register, with the craziest being you have to have planning permission and a mortgage arranged before you can get on the register, which is kind of self-defeating because you need a plot before you can get.
How would you know what you can build if you haven't got the land to put it on?
That's the challenge we've got, but there's been not a lot of accountability.
Right.
So and for me, just as a board member of NAXPA, we continually lobby for parity with the big builders. So allow the person building one house the same flexibility and license as somebody building, large developments. Mm-hmm. They deserve that because that's how we're going to solve this gap.
But you've also got to get round then the council, round by us, they've just done the 10-year plan.
Yes.
So if you've done a 10-year plan, how do you
Absolutely.
build that into it when they say, well, no, we've built the plan now for our area, where the new roads are, where the schools are, where we're going to let people build houses, etc. So unless they can get in at the right part of the cycle, that's going to be the biggest barrier that's there for.
Absolutely, I agree. And since being on the NAXPA board and attending the board meetings and hearing we're sure we'll come on to this with development finance, but the challenges as an SME builder, building a house, inside of I've forgotten the words, in a development or a settlement, building inside the settlement, there's challenges to building a house. Building outside the settlement is particularly hard if the boundary. I was like, wow, this blows your mind. I know Martin will talk about that later in terms of how they support brokers and builders in that area. But we don't often make it hard.
I'm trying not to be political, so I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I get told off for being too political, so I'm not doing it anymore. But okay, so there are some benefits to both the housing market, to the builder, if you like, the person. But how do we portray those? What are the benefits? So, Martin, you mentioned it about first-time buyers. I see the new generation as someone who get excited about building their own home, and as you said about custom build, I think knowing my friends that are now coming onto the housing market, if they had the opportunity to adapt a home to what they want, they would be all over that. Because we've done it now. We've all done it during COVID when we needed more space in our house. We've adapted and changed our space and living space to create a workspace. How are the brokers that are listening going to know and educate themselves enough? Where could they go? I mean, NAXPA is one example, but Martin, any other examples of where brokers can get information, can get excited about this area of the market?
Well, lots of the lenders are happy to do webinars, training. It's got to be asked for, and I think that's the point. As you say, your survey didn't get it mentioned, so if you're not in that market yourself as a lender, you do a survey, you'll get the answers. You'll just deliver on what's on there. So I think maybe lenders and distributors maybe need to put it on the agenda to ask people if they want to know more about it. So maybe we need to be more proactive on that, and then we can create what's needed.
Yep.
I think lenders need to be more up about it. Again, I think it depends on, even as a lender, what percentage of your business is self-built. Because, again, that's how much focus you as a lender are going to put on the promotion of it, because you might have your limits that you've set with the regulator, etc., that you want to do. So it's maybe working with a group of the lenders so that you can have that continuous training and education, and it's not slowed down by somebody going, we're near our yearly limit, we need to slow down. You've got somebody else who isn't, we'll carry on the training.
Absolutely. Is it a more difficult lend? So for the lenders?
No, it's the same. You're still lending on you're still assessing the value of a piece of security. So ultimately, it's the same process. We require more information up front. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it needs to have planning. We need to understand who's building it, what's their background. We need to understand the financials. Does it make sense? But after that, and obviously payments are released in stages.
This is the bit I found a little bit difficult to get my head around, but you described it really well to me previously, and I thought actually that's understandable that it's released in stages, and then that's designed to kind of help manage the project alongside the builder, isn't it, and the person's building.
Yeah, absolutely. So with ours, the borrower has to put their own funds in before we'll it's basically they pay it, we give it them back. In essence, so at different stages, generally the first one will be foundations at damp-proof level. Mm-hmm. It's a standard stage in building, so that gets the building approval. It'll then go to wind and watertight and first fix, and then you have stages there. But the beauty of how we do it at Saffron, and others do the same, is there is no limit to the amount of stages you can have, so you can build it out at the speed that you want to, which certainly helps. But to Martin's point, we ran our whole presentation, the whole approach at the Specialist Lending Senate, which was back in March, was around self-build and custom build. And as a result, we've got a number of distributors, including Simply Biz, talking to us about how we can support that education.
Brilliant.
And we've also got, on our own website, we've got guides to how you do self-build and custom build, but not customer-facing guide. It's a broker-facing guide. So it actually says, this is how to look amazing in front of your client, because this will tell you how to do it. And I've got a team of really motivated individuals that we love self-build. It's 20% of our annual volume is self-build. So it's a big thing for us. And that's growing because we recognise the value in it, and particularly ties in with our mutual ethos of home building, which is how mutuality started.
Yeah.
Collective investment to build homes. So it kind of really resonates with us.
So do you think, Martin, that we're going to see more lenders coming into the space? You said there's sort of 20 at the moment. Do you think that will grow?
No.
I
think we got the ones. I think because of the size of it, you are going to get the mutuals. I think the mutuals are the ones that see it as part of their DNA as to what they do. And I think picking up on your point, that training education as well, you need to take that through. So Gateway Surveyors is part of our group, reporting into me. So we got together 7 lenders last year to talk about the self-build market, understand what challenges each was having, whether it's about the valuation or other points, and trying to get the lenders to talk to one another as well.
Yeah.
That says, well, if you're having that problem, but they're not, why? Is it something in your process that's different? And can we do that? And that's something that we're looking to do on a regular basis as well, to keep those lines open, to make sure that as a surveying business, we're actually helping the lenders with that build, rather than just going in and ticking a box and going, 38,000, 250,000, whatever it is at that point in the build. It's got to be that cooperation through the process.
Absolutely. Surveyors is such an integral part of the whole market, but particularly self-build or custom build, because modern methods of construction, people are want to build homes not traditionally out of bricks and mortar. They want to try modern methods of construction, but because sometimes of the longevity of that particular build type, surveyors can be cautious around approving them. And that creates problems for people who want to build a house that has a material that is the right thing to do, but as lenders, we can't say yes to, because I've got a surveyor saying we're not proposing that as a suitable medium. So it is something that we talk to our panel managers about a lot, as to how do you learn so that we can say yes to more. It's an ongoing challenge, particularly at the moment. The big one is timber structures that haven't got the accreditation and therefore aren't deemed as suitable security as a building method. So that's one of the challenges that we currently face.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of topics all in one go there, but I just want to touch on this one article, which I thought was really interesting, from the Federation of Master Builders, and that was them demanding a Secretary of State for housing, actually bringing that role out of the multi-role that Michael Gove's got at the moment, or Angela Rayner will take if Labour come in, or whatever. I presume you'll both support that? Having a member of the government that is really focused on working with banks, building societies, brokers, builders, everybody. We talked about, I can't remember, it must have been the subject. We talked about bringing everyone around the table. You just said exactly what I was going to say, in that it's about time we all communicated and worked together and not fight against each other to develop these kind of markets. So would a Secretary of State help us deliver that?
If they sit in Cabinet.
Yeah.
I think they used to, and then they've got taken out.
Yeah.
And yet it's one of the crucial parts of, or should be the crucial parts of any government. I think if we're blue skying and saying what we'd really want, I think it needs to be taken out of sort of the hands of the government, and it needs to be a cross-party sat there that says, what is the housing going to look like for the next 20, 30 years? Because you can't work on cycles of, well, you'd say 5-year cycles of somebody in government, but actually as a housing minister, it's sort of 3 months. Yeah. So how can you have that structured policy when you're utilising it potentially for votes, which, we've even seen that rumoured over the last weekend of stamp duty coming back. Housing can't be used for political gain and political points. It needs to be something that's cross-party agreement, that's structured for the long time, to make sure that we have housing that's fit.
Agree, Tony?
Look, absolutely. And, I'm reasonably apolitical anyway, but, I don't care what it is, who it is, as long as we do something, because we consistently, in the competition markets authority's recent review into house building has identified a market that does not deliver for consumers and hasn't for successive decades. So clearly...
Oh, it's in recent, is it? It's a long time.
We have to do something. We have to. It's interesting. I know we'll come on to it, but it's something that I always talk about in terms of our institutionalised approach to house building in the UK. In the fact that we get told what we're going to live in and where by the big builders.
Yes.
It is very Stalinist. There's no choice. It's that box or that box, and it's there.
Yeah,
that's not the way for a functioning house building market, in my view. So anybody that can solve that. But I think what Martin says around actually let's make it an issue for us as a nation, not as a political tool, is the right thing to do. Absolutely.
And I think that you've got, over 100,000 people registered on one of the main self-build sites looking at plots and property.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a demand for it. And I think the last survey I said, over 53% said that if they had the chance, they would like to do it themselves.
Absolutely.
Let's stay on building. But let's move over slightly from an independent home to little smaller plots, and let's talk about development finance. Something I'll admit I know very little about, but thanks to Saffron I know something about, because I actually wrote a few articles about this a couple of 3 years ago now, and it got my attention. And I think I'll let you do a definition. I don't mind. I'll go past to you. A little definition for any brokers that haven't worked in development finance, just to explain what it means and what it is.
Development finance is exactly that. Finance to develop something. I suppose it does say what it is.
It says what it is on the tin.
It is that. It is how do you get something from ground up basically, and look at that. And that could be development something from scratch, or it could be transferring something from one form to another. But normally means from scratch upwards.
And not to live in yourself.
Not normally.
That's
no,
the
yes.
majority of the time, not to live in yourself. So it could be like an SME builder, somebody
Correct.
who's been a builder all their life, has an aspiration to have a business, and goes off and does something.
Correct.
Plots wise. Okay, so Tony, how big is the development finance market? You just said that self and custom build were the sort of fourth biggest builder. Where are the SMEs in this?
Do you know what? I'll probably refer to Martin, to be honest, because I think he's probably got a bigger stat. We're currently... I've only just recently picked up development finance as part of at Saffron, because the previous incumbent retired, and we've amalgamated it and made sure that it's front and centre within our broker community, and that's really what's happening. So I've just commissioned some research into truly understanding the market and where we need to play, what our position needs to be, where are the gaps. We're not, we've got very, very modest volume requirements even compared to some of the big players in the market. So I can't compete with them. So I'm looking for the opportunity that they can't or don't want to fill.
Okay.
So that's really what we're looking in. But I'll let Martin talk a bit about.
I'd say good luck on
size.
trying to find the size of the market. It's another one of those markets that's never been sized, and I think a lot of that is down to people's interpretation of what is development finance,
right?
And also who will do it. So yes, you've got the big high street banks do it. You've got challenger banks, specialist lender, but you've also got private people doing it for themselves, family trusts, etc. So getting that data is never easy, and then getting the definition of what's development finance, or actually was it a bridge? It gets a little bit blurred in places. So it's a growing market. It's very cyclical. So last year was very difficult for the development market, because we've had the cost increases of actually the materials, and then you added rates going up all of last year, that it didn't make economic sense in a lot of instances. The figures just didn't work, and people couldn't get the finance. So I think you've got a lot of people sat there waiting, ready to do it, and we're starting to see this year already people now. Things that they had on hold for the last 12 months, they're coming back to it.
They're starting to get an appetite for it again.
Try and see, it works now. Does it work? Yes, it works. And are starting to do it.
Okay. I presume these smaller developers have got... we were talking about self and custom, but helping to shape the housing market and change the housing market. The development teams, these small
absolutely.
developers.
We're starting to see a lot of SME builders buying plots for custom or self-build. So they're taking... the plot to a damp-proof course, so a full foundation with all utilities in, and then saying to people, come build your house. We'll help you do it, or you can just buy the site and build your own. What do you want? So there's a lot more of that we're seeing, and we're in a good space, because for us that's great, because I can help the developer and help the client build it. So it sits in both camps for us. So that's certainly an area that we're seeing more of. But Martin's right. Last year was a tough year because projects just didn't work. Whereas now we are seeing the GDVs coming out. The development opportunity and the value of the sites actually making sense from a profitable perspective. So we've got a lot of inquiries on the go, which is great to see.
Do you guess because there's more optimism in the financial markets as it is? I mean, we are coming to a rate reduction period, aren't we?
Absolutely. There's just more people that have sat on it for a year going, it's just not worth doing this. But now, and they probably potentially bought sites a year or so ago, but have held on to them because it wasn't worth the cost of building them out. The return wasn't there. So they're now starting to come to fruition, hopefully.
Is that not common anyway? Wouldn't you do that anyway? So if you saw a good piece of land and you could purchase and sit on it, is it? There must be developers that do that all the time.
It's cash flow for a small for an SME. It's cash flow. Absolutely. For a big developer, why not?
Because what was the stat? I can't remember. We had a stat of the amount of land that the big developers owned. And if we gave away something like 10% of the land that they owned, it would solve the housing crisis. And you think, but I didn't know. No, just from this, that was really interesting. Though, the sort of halting and looking at the market and saying, actually, I'm going to hold off, and it not being viable. I think that's really key. So what?
As an SME, you're not going to have. Very rarely have multiple plots on the go.
No.
You're going to go from one to the other, or maybe have two. So therefore, they've always got to work.
Yes.
Because that money's got to work quickly. Because once that one's finished, you're on to
the
the next one.
Income coming
You've
in.
got
You've
on
got
to
to be
the
working.
Exactly. So you can't go out and buy 5 plots of land and sit there and go, we'll see what happens. Unless you're in a very
fortunate position.
Exactly.
And you probably wouldn't need us if you had that.
I was going to say, if you could afford to do that, you wouldn't need help at all, would you?
You don't need the funding. So yeah.
And how small are some of these developers? I mean, just for a broker's perspective, if you're looking at it from the outside in, how big are plots?
How big are plots? It'll be one, as you said, it's a one. For us, our kind of sweet spot is that from as little as 300k up to 3 million. That's kind of our area. So that will be large. Mostly, I think the max we'll do is that kind of pricing at the moment. It's probably a 5-plot site.
Okay.
Depending where they are. A lot of our sites are in the south and southeast, which obviously costs more to purchase in the first place. But it's that smaller developer. And we actually, whilst we're driving it through brokers, we actually do accept direct business. We've got.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
We've got developers from years have got a relationship with us that don't use a broker. So they'll come to us directly, but most of our opportunities come via brokers, and that's what we're broadening at the moment.
Are most of these brokers are specialists in this area, Martin?
Yes, so you'll have commercial finance brokers, and you'll then have more of what I call the traditional residential buy-to-let broker that's moving into it. As I said earlier, if you've worked out that limited company buy-to-let's not hard, it's back to the point earlier. Development finance is just a mortgage that's going to be on a piece of land that's going to become a property. Ultimately, it's a mortgage. It's how it's financed, and how you calculate it will be slightly different. But I think with the SMEs, they're very good at creating things out of minimal space as well. Because what you see is it will be maybe a big house or an old house that's got a bit of land. They'll buy it, knock it down, and build 2 or 3 there. Or it's an old school or something where that. It's surrounded by other houses or mature properties, and they're trying to build something that sits within the area but still looks different, but doesn't stand out too much from the surrounding areas as well. So they have to be quite creative in that respect.
Okay.
And airspace development as well, which is not buying airspace. It is building on an existing property, going up, going down, going round. So there's a lot of that happening. Particularly in London, obviously, there's building underneath, isn't there?
Yeah.
Basements and things like that. So that's another key area. It isn't always just that hole in the ground building up. Okay. It can be it's a mixture.
But still subject to the same planning issues that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
They are. There is help there for SMEs to get some centralised funding. But as always, there's the tape around it. I think it's 5 plus more properties on the plot that you're going to build. You need to own it and already have planning permission.
Right.
But again, it's getting those messages out maybe to the SMEs that we, as a lender, you can help. As a broker, we can help you source you. But some of that funding might come centrally, and knowing that sort of rules and how to do it is going to be key.
And hopefully we can start to adjust the mortgage. Can you believe we're running out of time?
I know.
It's gone so quick already. So just some last words. What we'll do in the episode notes is put some links. So we'll put some NAXPA links in there as relevant sources. Martin, I'll get some links from you as well, so we can get some of the use of some of those resources that are available already. We'll get some from you. We'll put in the episode notes. So if there's anything we've talked about and you're not 100% sure, or you're interested and want to know more, we'll put it in the bottom of the episode thread. So just look down in the text underneath. There'll be some links there from us. So before we go, I think we're going to have to leave it there. We've got 5 minutes left, so let's have a quick recap. Tony, if a broker's interested in stepping into self and custom build, can you just get in touch with the BDM? Every one of your BDMs knows.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Ring everybody from the intermediary support team to your BDM. We're here to help you, and either come to us direct or come via your distributor or your network or your club. Get them to put them in touch. We're really happy to educate and inform. As I said, we've got the 2 guides, Guide to Self-Build, Guide to Custom Build on our website, so you can go onto that. Or just pick up the phone. We're seeing more and more first-time brokers doing self-build because they're starting to see the confidence, and we're holding their hand the whole way through. One of the things with us is you don't have to go via a third party. So with a lot of self-build lenders, you have to go for a third party to get access, which is fine. But with us, you don't. You can choose a third party if you don't want to do it yourself, like Martin was saying earlier. But actually, you can come to us direct, and we'll hold your hand the whole way through. So that's probably the key thing. But the other key thing is we're starting to see brokerages in London, particularly, creating specialist self-build teams, as they recognise the opportunity that's up in the market, and we're working with a number of those to really help educate and drive that forward.
And one last thing from you. We have a lot of people that are new brokers coming through. Education, that's what we do. We again, when we talk about education, being proactive, having a proactive conversation about self and custom development finance, that's what we kind of do on here. But where can we direct you? I presume we can direct some people to some educational resources from both Simply Biz and FIBA.
Yeah, absolutely. On both of our websites, you can find that. And also through FIBA last year, working with LIBF and ASTL, we helped launch the Certified Practitioner in Specialist Property, which is sort of a work stream that you can go through. It's about 40 hours online, but it covers those 4 areas and gives people who are looking to get into that market a good grounding on how that market works and what's there. And that there's some test and exam at the other end. You can get a certificate to say that you've passed it. But I think what it does is allows people to have that initial education, then talk to the lenders, then come out to people like ourselves and talk more.
I think in both areas, we're going to say what we say on every single podcast, is just communicate with each other. Brokers, lenders need to talk to each other. Everyone needs to get involved and bring themselves together and talk about it.
Yeah, I think the key thing is don't brokers this year are talking a lot about differentiation. It's a challenging market, and therefore if I do what I've always done, I'm not going to get the results I think I'm going to get, because it's look at all the three of the big banks this week showing profit reductions as a result of the mortgage market and losing some of their share, and because of the conditions. So the key is to differentiate, keep evolving, keep changing. And so a call to all brokers is don't hide away from opportunity. Embrace it, and you might be surprised what you can do as a result.
And you've probably found out how much of it's already sat in your client bank.
Absolutely.
What is their job? What do they do? Are they already in that market? You're just not talking to them about it.
Well, there we go. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That was really interesting. I hope you
Pleasure.
guys enjoyed it as well. That's it from us already. That's gone so quick. So we'll be back again next month. Don't forget, if you are watching us on Spotify, do sign up for the show, because it will inform you every time an episode becomes available. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, please give us a review, preferably 5 stars, because then other people get to see us as well. And we'll be back on the 1st of June. Goodbye.